There is a light bulb burning right now in a fire station in Livermore, California. It is not smart. It does not connect to Wi-Fi. There is no app, no update, no subscription. It was hand-blown, carbon filament, turned on in 1901, and it has been glowing almost non-stop for more than 120 years. One bulb, one switch, 1 century of reliability. Now pause for a second and look around your own home. Look at the phone in your hand. Look at the washing machine, the TV, the headphones, the smart fridge that promised to change your life. If you're lucky, that phone lasts 3 years before the battery gives up or a software update quietly makes it feel obsolete. The appliance might survive 5 or 7 years before a technician shrugs and tells you it's cheaper to replace than repair. We've been trained to accept this as progress. We tell ourselves technology is more advanced, more complex, more delicate. But here's the uncomfortable question. If we could build things to last a century back then, why do our most expensive products today die so young? Because what you're experiencing isn't bad luck. It's not innovation. It's design. We're told a very comforting story about why everything breaks now. We're told modern products are fragile because they're advanced, that more features mean more failure points, that thin, sealed, glued-shut devices are simply the price of innovation. That story is convenient. And it's wrong. Complexity doesn't automatically mean weakness. In engineering, complexity can be managed, redundancy can be built, parts can be replaced, systems can be designed to fail safely instead of catastrophically. The real reason your devices don't last isn't that engineers forgot how to build durable things. It's that they were told not to. Because a product that lasts too long creates a problem not for you, but for the company selling it. If something works for decades, you stop buying. Sales slow, markets saturate, revenue flattens. From a consumer's perspective, durability is value. From a corporate perspective, durability is a threat. And once you understand that conflict, a lot of things suddenly make sense. The sealed batteries, the proprietary screws, the repairs that cost more than replacement. These aren't accidents of modern life. They are business decisions, dressed up as progress. To understand how this stopped being a theory and became policy, we have to go back about 100 years. Christmas season 1924, Geneva, Switzerland. Executives from the world's largest light bulb manufacturers, companies that dominated the global market, met behind closed doors. They weren't there to innovate. They were there because they had a problem. Their engineers were doing their jobs too well. Light bulbs were lasting 2,500 hours, sometimes more. From the outside, that looked like a miracle. From the inside, it looked like a financial disaster. If a bulb lasts that long, you don't replace it. If you don't replace it, sales stall. So they formed a cartel and agreed on something that should make you uncomfortable. They would deliberately cap the lifespan of a light bulb at exactly 1,000 hours. Not a suggestion, a rule. Factories that produced bulbs lasting longer were fined. Engineers were punished for improving quality. Filaments were redesigned to fail sooner, thinner, weaker, cheaper. Failure was no longer a defect. It was a requirement. And it worked. By the 1,940 seconds, the 1,000-hour bulb became the global standard. The cartel eventually dissolved, but the idea survived. They proved you could make more money selling a broken product twice than a perfect product once. That moment quietly rewrote the rules of modern business, and everything that followed was built on it. Once companies learned that engineered failure could drive repeat sales, the idea didn't stay confined to light bulbs. It evolved. And this is where things get more subtle and more dangerous. In the early auto industry, Henry Ford had a problem similar to the bulb makers. The Model T was affordable, reliable, and easy to fix. People bought one and kept it running for years. Sales eventually stalled. Then General Motors took a different approach. Instead of making cars that physically failed, they made cars that felt old. Alfred Sloan introduced annual model changes, new colors, new trims, small cosmetic tweaks that had nothing to do with performance. The car still worked, but your satisfaction with it didn't. If you drove last year's model Everyone could see it. Your ego became the engine of sales. This was psychological obsolescence. The product didn't break. Your sense of status did. That strategy never went away. It simply got refined. Look at smartphones today. Each year brings a slightly different camera bump, a marginally thinner frame, a new shade of black. Nothing revolutionary, just enough to signal new. And that signal is worth billions. Because humans don't buy purely on function. We buy on identity, belonging, and fear of being left behind. Once companies realized they could sell replacement without destruction, consumption became endless. And that shift from physical failure to emotional dissatisfaction set the stage for what came next. Because if you can control how people feel about what they own, you don't need to break the product at all. You just need to make it stop feeling like enough. This is where the game truly changed. Physical failure was messy. Psychological pressure was powerful, but unpredictable. So companies moved to something cleaner. Software. Locks you can't see. Rules you didn't agree to. Ownership that quietly evaporates after checkout. Today, many of the things you buy aren't really yours. You own a license to use them on their terms. Replace your own phone battery? The system may refuse to recognize it. Use third-party printer ink? The printer disables itself. Try to repair a tractor or appliance? The software says no, nothing is broken. You're just locked out. This is planned obsolescence without wear and tear. No thin filaments, no fragile parts, just code. And code can be changed overnight. A single update can slow a processor, throttle performance, or optimize battery life right as a new model launches. Your device didn't age, it was downgraded. This is why modern products feel disposable even when they aren't physically damaged. They've been engineered to depend on permission that can be revoked. From a financial perspective, this is devastating. Because when repair is impossible by design, replacement becomes mandatory. You're no longer maintaining property. You're renting access to hardware you already paid for. And once ownership disappears, so does your leverage. That realization should make you uneasy, because it's not limited to phones or gadgets. It's the foundation for the next phase, where failure isn't even required for money to keep flowing. Here's where this stops being abstract and starts hitting your wallet. Every design choice that blocks repair quietly creates a tax, a replacement tax you pay over and over again. Let's put real numbers on it. Imagine a $1,000 laptop with a battery glued to the chassis and memory soldered to the board. When that battery degrades after 3 years, as all lithium batteries do, the machine isn't old. It's artificially stranded. If the battery were replaceable, you'd spend maybe $50 and keep going. But because it isn't, you're told to upgrade. That design choice didn't cost the company much. It cost you $950. Multiply that across your phone, your earbuds, your vacuum, your blender, your smartwatch. Over a decade, this isn't hundreds of dollars. It's thousands, and it compounds not as interest earned, but as capital destroyed. This is why cheap feels expensive later. You're not buying products anymore. You're financing turnover. From an investment mindset, this is irrational. Durable assets preserve value. Repairability extends lifespan. But modern consumer goods are engineered to behave like expiring leases. You stop thinking in terms of ownership and start budgeting for replacement. That shift drains cash flow, increases anxiety, and locks households into perpetual spending cycles. And just when companies perfected this replacement rhythm, they realized something even better. Even replacement leaves gaps, periods when you aren't paying them. So they closed the gap entirely. They stopped selling products and started selling dependence. Once companies realized that replacement cycles still left money on the table, they went one step further. They stopped asking you to buy again and started asking you to never stop paying. Subscriptions solved the final problem. Gaps in revenue. Heated seats locked behind a monthly fee. Software you once owned now rented forever. Features that already exist in the hardware activated only if your credit card keeps clearing. Miss a payment, and the product you paid for stops working not because it failed, but because access was revoked. From a financial standpoint, this is brilliant and brutal. Products turn into pipelines. Revenue becomes predictable. risk shifts entirely to you. There is no resale value, no asset at the end, no ownership to defend. You're not maintaining things anymore, you're servicing fees. And the psychological impact is subtle. Small monthly charges feel harmless, almost invisible. But over years, they add up to thousands of dollars with nothing to show for it. This isn't planned obsolescence. This is planned dependency. An economy where opting out feels inconvenient, outdated, or irresponsible, where canceling feels like loss, where every month quietly drains cash flow that could have been invested, saved, or simply kept. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people miss. This system only works if you keep running on the treadmill, which leads to the part no one likes to admit. The economy itself depends on your waste. This is the part that makes people uncomfortable, because it's bigger than any single company. Modern economies are built on constant turnover. If products lasted too long, factories would slow, inventory would pile up, jobs would disappear, and markets would panic. Economists have a name for this tension, the paradox of thrift, but on the ground, it looks simpler. The system only stays healthy if things keep breaking and getting replaced. Materials are pulled out of the ground, turned into products, sold to you, and discarded months or years later. If that loop slows down, growth stalls, stock prices fall, headlines turn ugly. Your spending isn't just encouraged, it's required. And that's where the pressure comes from. Advertising doesn't just sell convenience, it sells moral permission. Buy new to support innovation, upgrade to stay competitive, replace to keep the economy moving. But from a household finance perspective, this is upside down. Your long-term stability is being traded for short-term economic momentum. You're told it's normal to feel broke while surrounded by stuff that never seems to last. And here's the twist most people miss. The system doesn't collapse because you're wasteful. It collapses if you stop being wasteful, which means the incentives are never going to change on their own. Here's where the story turns inward, and it has to. It's easy to point at corporations and call them greedy. That part is obvious. What's harder to admit is how much we've been trained to cooperate. We like cheap. We like new. We like convenience. We don't like waiting, fixing, or learning how things work. We've been conditioned to treat durability as a hassle instead of an asset. When something breaks, our first instinct isn't, "Can this be repaired?" It's, "What's the upgrade?" That reflex didn't appear by accident. It was engineered through years of marketing, financing, and social pressure. Fast feels smart. Slow feels outdated. And from a financial perspective, that mindset is lethal. Because every time you choose replacement over repair, you're voting for the system that keeps draining you. Not because you're irresponsible, but because the system made that choice feel normal. This isn't about guilt. It's about awareness. Once you see how the incentives are stacked, you regain something important, the ability to choose differently. And that's where the real leverage begins. There's no fantasy ending here. You're not going to beat the system by refusing to buy anything or by waiting for corporations to grow a conscience. The exit is quieter than that and far more effective. You opt out, one decision at a time. You start treating purchases like capital allocation, not entertainment. When something breaks, you ask a different question. Not what's the newest version, but can this be fixed, and is it worth fixing? You favor products that open with standard screws, not glue. You look for companies that sell replacement parts instead of locking them behind service centers. You choose fewer subscriptions, even when they're convenient, because predictable monthly fees are predictable drains on cash flow. From an investment mindset, this is simple math. A $300 vacuum that lasts 15 years is cheaper than a $150 one you replace every 3. A used car with fewer sensors and screens often preserves more wealth than a new one loaded with failure points. Durability isn't nostalgia, it's strategy. This approach doesn't make headlines, but it compounds quietly. Less replacement, less anxiety, more cash left in your account, doing what money should do give you options. And every time you repair instead of replace, you're not just saving dollars, You're reclaiming ownership in a system designed to take it away. I've lived long enough to watch this cycle repeat itself. Products shrinking in lifespan, prices creeping up, ownership quietly replaced by permission. None of this happened by accident. Every hinge that snaps, every battery that can't be replaced, every feature locked behind a monthly fee is a deliberate choice. And the only reason it works is because most people keep playing along. So here's the quiet rebellion. Fix the toaster. Keep the 10-year-old car. Cancel the subscription you forgot you were paying for. Buy the thing that lasts, even when it costs more upfront. In an economy built on disposability, durability is a threat. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to convince anyone. Just stop feeding the machine that profits from your frustration. Because when enough people refuse to buy junk, the math changes. Be the glitch they didn't plan for. If this made you look differently at the things around you, pass it on. Awareness is contagious, and once you see the system clearly, it's very hard to unsee it.